Title: The Unseen King, a Cat's Stoic Triumph. The evening Clara walked out, I was 34, slumped against the peeling wall of my cliffside shack. The seas roar a dull pulse through the open window. Shadow, my lean tabby with eyes like storm clouds, perched on the sill, his tail a slow pendulum slicing the dusk. Her suitcase had thudded down the porch steps an hour ago. Her voice sharp as she'd said, "You'll always be there, won't you? I can't do this anymore." The door slammed, and I didn't move. Not my body, at least. But my mind raced after her, clawing through every moment I'd given her. My time, my effort, my loyalty, all poured into a woman who treated me like a spare tire, then when she needed a lift, forgotten when she didn't. Shadow didn't flinch, just stared into the fading light, his stillness a mirror to my chaos. I'd shown up for her. Every late night call, every canceled plan, every time she dangled just enough to keep me hooked. I thought if I proved my worth, she'd see me, really see me. But she hadn't. She'd taken me for granted, assumed I'd wait forever, a loyal dog panting at her heels. And the worst part? I'd let her. I'd swallow the bare minimum. Her half-hearted texts, her fleeting glances, telling myself if I held on, she'd change. Deep down, I'd known the truth. I was never her priority, just an option, easily swapped, easily discarded. Shadow leapt down then, padding to his bowl, sniffing the dry scraps, and turning away, calm, unbegging. What if she's wrong? What if I stop waiting? That night, watching him climb the shelf to nap in a sliver of moonlight, I decided it was over, not just with her, but with the man I'd been. Shadow, my stoic guide, would show me the way, and the ancient wisdom I'd found in a salt-stained book would light it. The pain hit like a wave crashing the cliffs, her absence a hollow ache, her indifference a knife twisting in my gut. I'd sit on the shack's lone chair, Shadow curled nearby, replaying it all. Why didn't she value me? Was I just a fallback? My mind spun. Every conversation, every promise, every time I bent for her, convinced she was out there, thriving without me. It hurt, a fire I couldn't douse, and most men would have broken. Texting her pleas, chasing her shadow, drowning in self-pity, hoping she'd turn back. I'd nearly done it, fingers hovering over my thumb, ready to spill my worth into a void she'd never fill. But Shadow didn't break. Once a gull stole his fish scrap right off the porch. He didn't yowl or chase, just sat, licked a paw, and watched it soar off, his storm cloud eyes steady. I'd scribbled a line from Marcus Aurelius in that attic book. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Pain wasn't my ruin. It was my forge, a currency for power. Shadow hunted shadows when his bowl ran dry, not whining for what was gone. I'd use this fire too. I quit the whiskey I'd nursed to numb it, started running the cliffs at dawn, legs burning as the sea roared below. Picked up a pen, wrote stories. Not for her, but for me. Gritty tales of salt and steel. Pain was temporary. I wouldn't let it sculpt me weak. Shadow's purr hummed through my nights, a rhythm to my rise, and I vowed. She'll see a man she can't discard, but I'm doing this for me. She thought I'd always be there, her safety net, her fallback, a fixture she could ignore until she felt like glancing my way. I made myself too available. A shelf option she'd picked when it suited her. Shadow didn't beg. When I forgot his water one foggy morning, he didn't claw or cry. He slipped out, found a puddle, returned with wet whiskers, unbothered. People don't value what's always there. I'd been her abundance, a given she'd never feared losing until now. I stopped texting, stopped calling, stopped haunting her digital shore. No more crumbs, no more chase. I vanished, a ghost in her world. Scarcity shifts everything. When I wasn't an option, she'd feel the void. I ran harder, wrote fiercer, let the shack's quiet wrap me in purpose. She'll wonder why I'm gone, I thought, watching shadow perch high, untouchable. But I'm not waiting for her notice. Control belongs to the one who needs least. That's what Shadow showed me, his indifference a blade I'd sharpened. I'd given Clara power, tethered my peace to her whims, her texts, her moods, her fleeting care. When she'd string me along, I'd react, argue, plead, seek her nod like it defined me. Shadow didn't flinch. A storm once flooded his bowl. He didn't paw at me, just climbed the roof, dry and serene above the chaos. Emotional detachment is ultimate power. I stopped caring, truly caring, about her moves. No replies to her old hey texts, no glances at her posts. I ran the cliffs, wrote by lantern light, worked the docks, my hands callousing, my mind clearing. Silence was deafening. She'd expect me to crack, to chase, but I didn't. Shadow's calm was my mirror. I became unpredictable, a man beyond her reach, and that shift turned the tide. She'd expect noise, anger spilling over, desperate pleas for closure, long texts proving I was still hers to wound. Most men shout their way back, thinking words will win her. Shadow stayed silent. When a stray Tom stole his spot on the porch, he didn't hiss, just watched, then leapt to the sill, his absence louder than a fight. Silence speaks louder than words. I gave Clara nothing. No calls, no explanations, just a void where I'd been. That quiet was my roar, a statement she couldn't ignore. She'd check her phone, find no trace of me, and wonder, why isn't he trying? Shadow's storm cloud eyes followed me as I wrote, his stillness my strength. She'll feel the weight of nothing, I knew, and I let it echo my power in the hush. Now, with her gone, I had a choice, wallow in the shack, replaying her exit, or forge something new. Shadow didn't linger. When I swapped his old mat for a crate, he didn't sulk, just claimed the wood, his tabby coat gleaming in the sun. Rebuild, become unrecognizable. I took the pain, the loss, and fueled a reinvention. Not for her, but for me. Hit the cliffs harder, my legs steel from the runs. Rode until my fingers cramped, stories piling like driftwood. Worked the docks, my frame hardening with every crate. Shadow hunted the roof at dusk, the king in his quiet. I mirrored him, leveling up body, mind, purpose. She'll see a man she doesn't know, I thought, but I wasn't waiting for her eyes. This was my crown, my rise. She'd expect me to care, watching her life, reacting to her silence, still tied to her thread. Shadow didn't. When I left for a shift, he didn't rush to the door on my return, just yawned, stretched, indifferent. The art of indifference shakes them. I stopped, truly stopped, caring about her moves. No glances at her posts, no replies to her tests. Ran the cliffs, wrote my truths, lived my rhythm, unshaken, untouchable. She'd sense it, the energy she'd dismissed now gone, and it'd gnaw at her. Why doesn't he care? Shadow's high perch was my throne. I didn't need her nod, my peace my own. Weeks turned to months, and I felt the shift she'd notice. Shadow knew when I'd moved on, ignoring his old bull, hunting the cliffs instead, his presence a quiet force. Claire'd assume I was still hers, waiting, pining, until the silence stretched too long. A dockhand mentioned her asking, "He's still around?" No text came, but I knew she'd check, her intuition prickling. He's not there. She'd feel the void, the absence of my chase, and doubt would creep in. Did I misjudge him? Shadow didn't flinch when I swapped his food. I didn't waver when her hey pinged my phone. She notices now, I thought, but I was too far ahead to care. She'd test me. One day she did. A text, "How you been?" Casual, baiting, waiting to see if I'd bite. Most men fail here, rush back, eager for crumbs, proving they're still hers. Shadow didn't chase the goal's theft. He watched, moved on. The return test, pass it. I didn't reply, didn't flinch. She'd expect me to crack, to prove she still held me, but I'd outgrown that trap. My silence was my shield. She'd get nothing, no hint I cared. She misses control, not me, I knew, watching Shadow leap to the roof beyond reach. I walked my path, my crown intact. The power shifted. She'd feel what I felt, the sting of absence, the ache of loss. Shadow's indifference when I left for shifts mirrored mine now. Claire'd replay us. Wonder why I'd slipped away, realize I'd been rare, real, hers until I wasn't. She thought me a fixture, a safety net. Now I was gone, a man she didn't know. She feels it now, I thought, but I didn't look back. Shadow hunted alone, his tabby stripes a crown. I lived alone, my shack my kingdom, her regret her burden. This was never about her. It was about mastery, my emotions no longer her reins. Shadow didn't react. When the Tom returned, he watched, climbed higher, ruled his quiet. Mastery over emotions is true power. I've been the chaser, the beggar. Now I observed, understood, moved forward. Claire had thought me breakable. I'd become unshakable, my peace mine away. She'll regret the man I am. I mused, but it didn't matter. I validated me. Freedom was my victory. Not her return, not her pain, but my release. Shadow didn't need my scraps. He hunted, thrived free. The ultimate triumph is needing nothing. I'd wasted years on her, chasing, hoping. Now I ran cliffs, wrote epics, lived untethered. She'd text again, "Hey, you around?" And I'd smile, not reply, my shack humming with purpose. I'm limitless. I knew Shadow's per my anthem, the sea my witness. A year on, Shadow sits on the sill, his storm cloud eyes tracing the dusk, while I write by the lantern, the cliffs a steady roar beyond. Clara's texts fade unanswered, her loss, not mine. The docks pay steady, my stories stack high. I'm stoiccat, crowned by silence, king of my unseen realm. She'd thought me an option. I'd become the prize she'd never reclaim. I chose me, I wrote, and Shadow leapt down, brushing my leg, a quiet nod to our triumph.